literally no offense to anything. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
This would have been a lot better if they, had a strong male along with her, a prince, if it wasn't about socialism, if they didn't remove the dwarves, if they had real dwarves.
Rachel Zegler, who was once seen as a rising star in Hollywood, got caught in a lot of drama after the so-called Snow White disaster. This term covers all the bad things that happened, like poor test screenings, behind-the-scenes problems, and major backlash that almost ruined the whole live-action movie. Now, in a surprising twist, there are rumors going around that Zegler blames Peter Dinklage for making things even worse.
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarves. Okay,
but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures.
This new twist has started fresh debates and added more interest to a story that was already full of rumors. How did things get so messy? What part did Peter Dinklage play? And why is Rachel Zegler upset with him? Maybe the biggest question is whether this blame game shows a bigger problem in how Hollywood is trying to update classic fairy tales. In the months before the movie came out, the project faced one controversy after another.
You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group, you just erased that whole image.
Disney had announced plans to remake the classic Snow White for a new generation, promising to fix parts of the original 1937 film that it saw as outdated. At first, fans were curious and interested to see how the studio would modernize such a well-known story. Rachel Zegler was chosen to play Snow White, a decision that received both support and
argument should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV, there's power of television, and to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there.
Some fans supported the casting, seeing it as a step toward more inclusivity in a classic role. Others were unsure, worried that Disney might change too much from the original story. Then, Peter Dinklage spoke up, sharing his concerns about how the 7 dwarfs might be shown in a way that felt stereotypical. His comments resonated with many people who believe Hollywood should be more careful in how it shows characters, especially those who've often been mocked or misrepresented in the past.
If the story is offensive, change the story, don't change the character.
But Dinklage's comments also caused tension at Disney. The studio was suddenly stuck between honoring a classic story and trying not to reinforce any harmful stereotypes. This sparked a heated debate on social media, dividing fans. Some praised Dinklage for speaking up, while others felt his concerns were too much, saying the story could still keep its magical feel if handled with care, without making fun of anyone.
Peter Dinklage destroyed Disney, and it could end up costing the company over $100 million.
At the time, Rachel Zegler stayed mostly silent, which led people to believe she either didn't mind the controversy or wasn't allowed to speak due to her contract. As the project moved forward, rumors began to spread about changes being made to the script. Some insiders said the team was rushing to fix the story because of the backlash, and there were whispers that the creative crew was struggling to decide whether to keep the dwarfs in the movie or leave them out entirely.
Disney has cast Rachel Zegler to play Snow White, which caused a lot of controversy because Zegler is Hispanic and the character is traditionally German.
Additional reports claimed that some of the script changes were a direct reaction to the studio's panic over Dinklage's comments. Meanwhile, Zegler was said to be stuck in the middle, trying to keep up with a story that kept changing around her. As filming neared the finish line, more issues popped up, like messy editing and a storyline that didn't quite make sense. Test audiences weren't impressed either, with many calling the film's tone confusing and uneven.
That controversy is being compared to Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid, which did lose $50 million, making only $555 million in a budget of $250 million.
Viewers described some scenes as trying too hard to push modern messages, making them feel forced instead of naturally fitting the story. For a classic and beloved tale like Snow White, this raised serious concerns. Behind the scenes, rumors suggested that the creative team wasn't on the same page. Some wanted to stick closer to the original, while others pushed for big changes to make the story more in line with today's values.
Peter Dinklage comes into this as when Rachel Zegler was cast, he laughed at Disney saying it's fake progressivism. The reason being that Peter Dinklage, who does have achondroplasia, finds the depiction of the 7 dwarfs very offensive.
Rachel Zegler's name kept coming up in those conversations since she was the face of the whole project. Whether things went right or wrong, the spotlight was on her. Then, rumors started spreading online that Zegler was unhappy with how things were going. Some claimed she was venting her frustration, while others believed she was trying to manage the fallout and protect her image.
Peter Dinklage said that Disney casting Rachel Zegler is their way to feel good about themselves while ignoring a much bigger problem.
Conflicting stories continued to spread. One strange rumor even suggested there might be legal trouble involving Zegler, allegedly due to a confrontation on set. However, no solid evidence ever came forward to back up that claim. Despite that, the rumor mill kept turning, further damaging the film's reputation. In response, Disney tried to shift gears and save the movie's image.
Peter Dinklage was criticized by some actors with similar conditions, like Dylan Postl said Peter Dinklage was being selfish and that community needs more work.
It seemed like every move Disney made only sparked more criticism. Fans who usually support the studio's live-action remakes started calling this one a step too far, while critics pointed to the whole mess as a prime example of how modernization can fail when done poorly. As the film neared its release, it was weighed down by all the negative attention, and the excitement for it was overshadowed by the ongoing drama.
There's now an effort in Hollywood to not cast little people and instead do things like cast Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa.
Meanwhile, Peter Dinklage's original comments continued to linger in the background, still shaping how people viewed the film. Some people were thankful that Dinklage had raised awareness about how the dwarfs were being portrayed, arguing that a major company like Disney should be held to high standards of inclusivity. On the other hand, some criticized him for making an already tricky situation even more complicated, adding to the film's struggles.
Rachel Zegler is supposed to play Snow White. She's Latina. It says, literally no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback that they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Some suggested that Dinklage's concerns led to creative decisions that ultimately hurt the film's overall cohesion. As the lead, Rachel Zegler became a prime target for criticism. People blamed her for being in over her head or not doing enough to guide the story in a better direction. The phrase Snow White disaster quickly became a catch-all term for all the problems the production faced.
Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but then you're still making that backwards story about 7 dwarves living in a cave together. What the fuck are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough.
From the negative press to the poor test screenings and beyond, once the term Snow White disaster stuck, it was hard to escape. Headlines claimed that Disney's new Snow White was doomed, that the production was filled with tension, and that the beloved fairy tale had been ruined by clumsy changes. Zegler's every public appearance and social media post was closely analyzed to see if she acknowledged the criticism or tried to defend the film.
I mean, there's the easy joke of, well, we didn't see you on the soapbox, Peter.
It's true.
But
fans online were split into passionate groups. Some argued that it was all a misunderstanding and that the film would turn out fine, while others accepted that disappointment was probably inevitable. As emotions ran high, speculation about how Disney might distance itself from the fiasco started to surface. Some fans even suggested that the studio might fast-track a new adaptation, one that would push the troubled version aside entirely.
It's this weird thing where he's saying, like, oh, it's bad that we're still doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so he doesn't necessarily want that. But as little people actors, it's like, well, we kind of want to work. We kind of want...
Rumors began circulating about a second Snow White adaptation, featuring a new cast, director, and creative direction. Jenna Ortega's name quickly gained traction as a fan-favorite choice to play the iconic role. Fans imagined how her strong acting range, comedic timing, and emotional depth might bring a fresh take on Snow White, especially if the script was more in line with modern sensibilities without feeling forced. The idea of Ortega stepping in for a reimagined version of Snow White excited many, but these rumors came amid a wave of negative press surrounding Zegler's version. Then, things took an unexpected turn. Unverified sources claimed that Rachel Zegler privately blamed Peter Dinklage for much of the film's troubles. According to these rumors, Zegler felt that the criticism and rewrites following Dinklage's comments about the portrayal of the dwarfs were directly responsible for the chaos. She was rumored to have confided in close associates that the production had made drastic changes in response to the backlash, which not only muddled the film's tone, but also made her performance seem inconsistent. Whether or not this blame was fair, the story quickly spread through online discussions. Supporters of Zegler argued that her frustration was understandable, given that the debate about the dwarfs had turned into a wider critique of the film's entire approach.
that part, and if that's what's available, then that's what we'd like to do. But at the same time, I get what he's saying, because yeah, you're like, well, was it that bad? I go, yeah, because at the time, dwarves really didn't have any representation.
Some argued that the negative attention on the film unfairly overshadowed Zegler's performance and the efforts of the cast, painting the movie as flawed before it had a chance to prove itself. Others disagreed, pointing out that the film's problems went beyond just the dwarf's portrayal. They pointed to issues like sudden tonal shifts, a heavy-handed approach to messaging, and a loss of the original fairy tale's whimsical charm. These critics believed Dinklage's comments were a trigger, but not the root cause of the film's downfall. Still, the mere idea that Zegler blamed him sparked a new round of debate. Industry insiders, when asked about the rumors, mostly dismissed them, saying that while tensions were high, it was too simplistic to place the blame on any one person. Yet, the narrative of Zegler versus Dinklage kept gaining momentum. Online, people noted that Dinklage had a reputation for challenging Hollywood norms and speaking out on various issues. If he had stirred the pot here, it wouldn't have been out of character, especially on such a sensitive topic. And if the creative team overcompensated in response to his concerns, it could have easily snowballed into the mess that overshadowed the film. To those following the drama closely, the idea that Zegler blamed him didn't seem far-fetched. When the film finally hit theaters, it came with all that negative baggage. Reviews were mostly mixed, with many highlighting the same issues seen in test screenings. The story felt broken, attempts to modernize clashed with nostalgic moments, and the dwarf's portrayal seemed unrecognizable. Some believed the filmmakers couldn't decide whether to feature the dwarfs, minimize them, or completely rework their roles. Zegler's performance got both praise and criticism. Some admired her effort despite a confusing script, while others felt she was miscast from the start. Dinklage, on the other hand, remained publicly silent during this time, which only fueled speculation. People wondered if he was distancing himself from the production out of respect for the cast, or because he felt the final product had failed to address his concerns. Meanwhile, Zegler continued to face online scrutiny as rumors of her private frustrations spread. Fans and critics analyzed every interview or social media post, searching for hidden references to Dinklage. Were her veiled comments about creative differences aimed at him, or the broader issues within the studio?
Or can we just say midgie? Okay. Midget, dwarf, they're out of work. They're replaced by CGI things. Yes. Like, this is just a perfect
example. That.
When there's
thing 12.
There's no guiding principle, just progress for the sake of progress, and you're just trying to weave around a fence after.
Was Zegler distancing herself from blame, or simply expressing regret that the production never found its footing? Despite all the chaos, the film's release came and went. It sparked a flurry of social media discussions, but failed to achieve the critical or commercial success Disney had hoped for. Word of the fiasco spread through Hollywood, reinforcing the idea that the production had too many conflicting voices pulling the story in different directions. Some analysts argued that the mess could have been avoided if the filmmakers had taken a more balanced approach, combining a faithful retelling of Snow White with thoughtful and respectful updates. Instead, once Peter Dinklage's comments went viral, Disney seemed to shift into overdrive, trying to prove they were being progressive. According to these critics, that rush to modernize ended up being the project's downfall. Not long after the film's lackluster reception, rumors surfaced that Disney was considering a second attempt at Snow White, possibly following the same approach they'd taken with other franchises. This move suggested the studio might be looking for a fresh start and a clean slate.
And someone goes like, hey, Seven Dwarfs is offensive to midgets. You're like, oh, okay, so let's just not employ any of them.
Yes, Peter Dinklage.
With rumors of fresh writers, a new director, and a potential new star, Jenna Ortega's name popped up again, sparking renewed interest in how a reimagined Snow White might do. By this time, many fans were disheartened and began questioning whether Disney's constant drive to remake classics was doing more harm than good. However, some still held on to hope, believing that a well-balanced adaptation could still offer a magical experience for modern audiences. Zegler wasn't the only one facing public skepticism. This entire fiasco had cast doubt on Disney's live-action strategy. Yet, in certain corners of the internet, the speculation about how Rachel Zegler felt regarding Peter Dinklage's role in the whole mess refused to fade. Rumors gained traction that Zegler had confided in friends about how unfairly Dinklage's comments had burdened her. She was reportedly upset not only by the sudden changes to the story, but also by how these controversies had made her the public face of a film being criticized from every angle. Although there was no concrete evidence to back up these claims, the narrative was compelling enough for fans who had witnessed how the dwarf controversy had overshadowed much of the production process. By this point, some fans began shifting the blame in a different direction.
With Snow White, let's go through this, right? There's no prince. A woman doesn't need a prince.
Oh, Lord.
Really? Okay, good luck back then.
Some critics pointed out that an actress of Zegler's stature and visibility could have spoken up sooner if she was truly unhappy with the direction of the story. They argued that Dinklage's comments, though provocative, weren't the only reasons the film struggled. There were many criticisms about pacing, characterization, cluttered themes, and heavy-handed messaging, issues that had little to do with how the dwarfs were portrayed. Still, the rumor that Zegler blamed Dinklage for sending the production into a tailspin became a focal point that overshadowed those other problems. For some, it was easier to focus on a simpler cause and effect explanation for how things went wrong. Through all of this, Disney kept quiet about any internal tensions or blame games. The company stuck to its usual strategy of letting the public conversation burn out, hoping that new projects and announcements would shift the audience's focus. Over time, the Snow White disaster might become a cautionary tale in Hollywood's ongoing push to remake classic films. But the persistent rumor that Rachel Zegler directly blamed Peter Dinklage ensured that this particular fiasco would remain etched in the public's memory.
He doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
This wasn't just another underwhelming remake. It became a story of creative and interpersonal discord on a major studio production. Journalists who tried to get Zegler or Dinklage to comment on the rumors were met with silence or polite deflection. Perhaps both stars saw no benefit in stirring up more controversy. From Dinklage's perspective, his supporters argued he had done what he was often praised for, speaking out about representation in Hollywood. As for Zegler, if she did indeed hold him responsible for triggering a wave of panic at the studio, it was likely something better discussed privately than in public headlines. Any public criticism of his comments would have only fueled more debates about sensitivity and storytelling and put her in an even more complicated position. As the dust settled and the film faded from the daily headlines, the saga continued to live on in message boards, fan forums, and casual conversations among film lovers. The various elements of the fiasco, modernizing a classic fairy tale, balancing inclusivity with traditional tropes, and the clash of creative visions, reflected wider tensions in Hollywood's evolving landscape. The alleged rift between Zegler and Dinklage became a symbol of the challenges that arise when a beloved story is reimagined in an environment where every detail is up for intense debate.
And I get it, there's a difference between spoiling and whatever, but to go out and badmouth everybody and talk smack about, older movies in the same franchise, the canon story, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I feel like they would have had better control over that.
The Snow White remake became more than just another underwhelming adaptation. It turned into a symbol of creative and interpersonal struggles in Hollywood. Despite defenders of the film's intentions, the execution faltered, hindered by many conflicting voices and the pressure to be socially aware. In the months following its release, comparisons to the film were inevitable, with critics and fans using it as a reference for other potential missteps in future Disney remakes. For Rachel Zegler, this film became an indelible chapter of her early career, with rumors that she had blamed Peter Dinklage for triggering the production's downfall. Dinklage, known for his advocacy of representation, sparked a backlash over the portrayal of dwarfs, forcing the studio to scramble and make changes mid-production. Some argued that his critique was important, while others claimed Disney mishandled the situation by rushing to please without a clear vision. As the film's reception soured, Disney insiders reportedly debated whether to back the project or quietly let it fade. The studio's marketing, which initially highlighted inclusivity, failed to recover the film's momentum, and disaster became the shorthand description in media circles. Zegler, caught in the public eye, faced scrutiny as the film's rumored scapegoat. Even though she never publicly confirmed blaming Dinklage, the rumors persisted, feeding into a larger conversation about Hollywood's struggles with balancing modern sensibilities with beloved stories. While Zegler's alleged frustration with Dinklage became a focal point, the reality of the film's problems was far deeper, rooted in script issues, tone clashes, and an unclear direction about how to modernize the fairy tale. Dinklage, for his part, avoided stoking further controversy, deflecting questions about the film when asked. The Snow White debacle became a cautionary tale for Disney and Hollywood at large. The disaster underscored the importance of maintaining a unified vision when modernizing iconic stories. It also revealed the power of public commentary, how a single actor's remarks can spiral into a much larger controversy, shaping the entire production. In the end, the Snow White disaster serves as a reminder that even with brand recognition and star power, no project is immune to failure when not handled with clarity and care. Whether or not Zegler blamed Dinklage, the incident remains an example of the complexities of adapting classic tales in a world where public opinion can redefine a film's fate.